Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the next Blender tutorial with me. My name is Ryan, and so we're starting something fresh this week. I know you're gonna love this because I loved it. Pretty cool. So there's this lamp model right over here that I've got, and we are going to be doing some cool stuff with this lamp in Blender. But before I get cracking, so first of all, just looking at a lamp itself, all right, a lamp consists of all sorts of different textures, right? Sorry, let's look for old lamps. It's usually the original color of the lamp itself, and then it's also, you know, with these lamps comes like a lot of rust. All right, let's look at this lamp. This is probably a CG lamp. Yeah, probably a CG lamp. I'm looking for a nice real rusty lamp, and a well-lit one as well. Yeah, the old lamp, metal paint. Alright, let's look at this. Alright, here's a good example. So you can actually see how vintage lamps, maybe that's what I should have googled. I don't know how to spell paraffin, or maybe like a rusty old lamp. It's important for you to obviously have a reference. There you go. That's more like what I'm looking for right here, is something like this. Okay, it's good to have a reference of what you're wanting to model, just because you need to understand the details. You know, I know that a lot of us, you know, you in your head maybe you have an idea of what you want to look for, but the chances are it could be nothing close to what you're looking for. I like this. All right, if I look at this photo over here, and this is something that I want to base off texturing this lamp today. All right, you can see that there are parts that are rusted and there are parts that are nicely painted. You can see it's not too shiny, but it has a very slight roughness slash shininess to it. Yes, and so what we're going to do today is basically take this lamp over here, all right, and you can Google for one for your own model, and we're going to go through texturing this, and that's the series that we're going to look through now. So in other words, the type of materials that we're going to look at texturing is glass, maybe like a metal, and then also rust, and then also looking at mapping out these textures. Right, so let's get started. I'm going to select this first part. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call it lamp. All right, and then what I'm going to do is, and I know that you might seem like, but dude, why are you? So for example, I'm going to give in a RGB input here, and I'm going to plug that into the base color. And I know what you're thinking, why don't you just change it here? All right, just work with me. All right, so I'm going to put the base color in here. I'm going to go into render mode. I'm on my new, oh, by the way, this is up to date. I just downloaded this version of Blender. If you're watching like years, even months from now, this might be very old for you, but this is Blender version 2.9 3.5. You can see here in the corner. And also I told you guys about the new iMac that we got, Adaptive TV, and basically this is the M1 chip, and yeah, we're using GPU, and this was the actual, if you go onto the Blender site, Blender was one of the first guys, which is, I mean, that's why I love these guys. The developers were one of the first developers to actually develop for the new M1 chip. So it was available. So I downloaded the M1 version, the Intel Silicon chip version of this. So yeah, let's see how my cycles do. Okay, 64 in my viewport. I would like to push that up, but let's see how things go. Right, so the color that I'm going for is more like a nice blue, like maybe something like this. Let's go a bit closer here. All right, something nice like this. Okay, And then also the other thing that I'm going to do is get my input on, I'm going to add in a roughness. Alright, by the way, it's Shift A just to get up this menu here. So texture, input, my bad, value. Alright, again, you're going to be like, but dude, why don't you just put it in there? Just work with me, alright? I'm going to plug that in here. And because immediately, the minute that I start off here, in my opinion, this, it's too rough. Alright, I just want a slight bit of a glossy, so I'm going to bring this down to maybe, let's say 0.2. Okay. Right, very cool. So that's what we are sitting with over here now. And now you can see if I look at the render of my material, it's looking like the right type of metal, the right kind of painting of it. Everything looks beautiful, wonderful. Now I am going to do something that is very odd, maybe not odd, but anyway, just work with me. So I'm going to highlight both of these, the RGB and the value. Now I don't know why it does this, but it's pretty strange. Check this out. Maybe you guys have an answer for this as to why it does this, but anyway, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to group this, all right, and in my group node now watch this. So I'm going to unplug it from here, and remember, with what I've basically done now is I've grouped these nodes together so it's one node. Okay, and you have your group input and your group output. Now what the input and output allows is that I've got input and output. So even though this node is in here, all right, e.g. I'm able to even when the node's closed, I'm able to plug outside nodes into here. All right, and so that's what you input and your output. I have spoken about grouping nodes before, so I'm going to remove these. I'm going to take this color, I'm going to plug it in there. So now we have a color input, and I'm going to take this value over here and I'm going to plug it in there. And guess what? I don't need the RGB and I need the value. That's what we're sitting with here, straightforward. The other thing that I want to do is change this value to roughness because that's what it is. So if you press N, you get the sidebar in here. In my outputs, color is fine. Value, I'm going to change to roughness. Okay, awesome. Close the node. There you go. And now I'm sitting basically with that. So that is my paint. So even the node, I'm going to change it. All right, and the label, I'm going to call this paint. Great. So now we're sitting with basically our paint texture. Okay, pretty cool, quite nice. Now so we've got the one material. So now we've got the one material, and that is whatever color or material the lamp was originally painted when obviously the lamp was made. Now the other one that I need to do is get my rust. Now just looking at rust by itself, what color is rust, right? It's you can see there's like a dark brown, and there's almost this like yellow, light brown, yellowish color. So it's those two textures, right? So I'm going to disconnect this. Okay, we're going to get to that a little bit later. I'm going to put my paint aside, and we're going to attend to my rust. And so how do I create rust? Right, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create, using an input, I'm going to use I'm going to use a texture coordinate. I'm going to add, okay, so Shift A, I'm going to add in a noise texture. Right over there. Okay, brilliant. I'm going to plug my object. We have spoken about the texture coordinate, and what it does, it basically maps my texture onto the object. Now you do get your generated normal UV, etc. I'm going to use object, plug that into the vector. Okay, and I'm going to now show you basically what we're going to be working with here. All right, so yeah, let's plug my factor, all right, into my base color, and let me show you what the noise let me show you what the noise is doing. All right, so that's what it's doing. Now you already start saying, okay, cool, so that's basically what you're doing. Yes. All right, we're going to fine tune this. So you know, I think the very important and cool thing here that I can actually teach you is how to use your nodes, because not everyone's going to create a lamp, but maybe you want to create something with Rust, or maybe there's something else that you want to create where you can use similar methods to what we're doing today. So using the noise texture, the first thing I want to do is I want to push this up to 100. All right. And I'm going to change my detail. My detail to 10. These are all settings, just by the way, that I've already done this. So I'm literally just punching in numbers here. This roughness, now this might not be on all versions of Blender, but if you're updated to a very similar, to a very modern, newish version of Blender, this roughness will be there. For those, if it's not, don't worry. I don't use the roughness at all. I've learned to just put that all the way down. And then I'm going to have a little bit of distortion. Let's see, what did I make my distortion? 0.5. Okay, awesome. All right, now let's have a look at it. And as the image comes clearer, you can actually see how we're starting to get a nice rough looking like rust texture, right? I'm gonna push this up to 200. Get that a bit more smaller. I can zoom in. Great, as it clears up. All right, and then yeah, you can see how we're starting to get this nice rough looking like rust texture. Okay, now we can color it, and that's by using, all right, Shift A. I'm going to use a color ramp converter. Push that right in there, and basically what I'm going to do with this color ramp converter, right, is I'm going to change it. I'm going to input the two colors that I want, right? Now remember what it was. It was almost this like let's have a look here. This like very light brown here. Okay. So I want to go for this like yeah, something like that. I'm going to select the second pin over here, and I'm going to go dark brown on this one, guys. This is a like really hectic rust. All right, and you'll actually see that as it clears, it's introduced these two colors. Now remember, the value that we're getting out of factor is black and white. The noise texture will be black and white, and what the color ramp is doing is it's converting the white into a light brown and the dark areas into the black. And so you can see how we've got a mixture of those two colors. Now the other thing that we need to add into with Rust is basically some bumps, right? So under converter, I'm going to select under vector, select my bump. I can plug my normal into there, and then I can also plug. Now this noise texture, remember, is driving our texture, so just pull out of the factor. That needs to go into my height. Maybe we can make this, doesn't have to be as strong, make this 0.4, and my distance I can bring down to 0.2. Otherwise we've just got this like really hard, rough looking surface. Alright, let's hope that it gets a bit more clearer. I'm going to show you a few more things that we're actually going to get together here. Okay, so if you look here nicely now, can you see there? It looks rusty, right? Feels like if I had to run my finger over this, you know, it would be very rough. So looks pretty awesome. The next thing that I want to do is I want to control this roughness. Now, yeah, I can push this up, let's say 0.7, you know, but what I want to do is I want to drive it, and I want to have a bit more control over the roughness. Okay, so I'm just making more space here, and we do that by taking the noise texture and driving it into the roughness. So automatically, if I take this factor and I push it into the roughness, now I can improve it like quite a bit. Remember what the roughness is doing. All right, if I bring it down here, it's white. All right, that's the input that we're putting, which means that it's smooth. Okay, you can already see now how I'm getting smooth around here. So that's white, and the more I bring it up, it gets more black. Okay, and that's when it becomes more rough, less reflective. So remember, what I'm getting out of my noise texture is basically that noise. Let me just show you, of mostly white and the black speckles. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take a math node and I'm going to make some adjustments to it. Right? In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the base color so I can actually show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to use this thing called a math node, right? And the first thing I'm going to do is I will be multiplying. Now what multiplying is going to do is, if it's white, it's going to increase it a bit, right? So let's change the value to 0.7. So in other words, whatever's white, it's going to multiply it by 0.7. So it's going to increase it. Whatever's black, it's going to increase it by 0.7. So it's going to make it, let me just plug this into here. It's going to make it, can you see how it's strengthened it? It almost gives it a bit of a contrast, right? But now what I want to do is I want to take that range between my black parts, my white parts, and I want to shift it up a bit. And I use that by taking the math node, all right, shift D, which duplicates it. I'm going to say add. So what I'm doing now is I'm bringing it slightly up. So value into here, and I'm going to take this value out, and we're going to have a look at exactly what we've done here. So remember what the roughness, what drives the roughness, all right. And you can see now there's a lot of white, and there is a bit of the black once it clears up. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that into my roughness. I'm going to plug this back into my base color from my color ramp. Okay, and once the render clears up quite nicely, you are going to get yourself, look at the bottom here, it's looking quite nice, the rust. Okay, now this is the base of my rust. Okay, so what exactly am I saying? I'm saying that we've got our paint and we've got our rust. So I want to group this. Okay, so I'm going to take, I think, all of this. I'll leave that there. All right, and I'm going to Command G, group it together. But now we need to decide what our inputs and our outputs are going to be, right? So I think what's important here is I'm going to be wanting the scale of my noise. Okay, I'm going to want my distortion, which we're going to adjust a bit later. All right, the names are cool. And then the other thing is that I want to adjust how much I multiply it and how much I add into it. Okay, very cool. I'm going to just rename here. So I think this is my input node. So scale, distortion, and this value now. Now, this value I am going to name roughness base, because like I said, this guy over here is my roughness base. In fact, I'm lying. This is actually my roughness variation, because that is how much my roughness, yes, will variable by. It is my add. That is actually my roughness base, because remember, I'm lifting and bringing down that value between 0 and 1, if that makes sense. Okay, and then the last thing that I just want to quickly do here, alright, so is take my roughness base. I want to put that first. Okay. And so that's what we're sitting with. Now the next question, of course, after I save, don't forget to save, is I want to now mix my paint, right? And by the way, let's name this group node over here to Rust. All right, so now we've got our Rust node, and it's also driving our bumpiness, and we've got our paint node. So how do we add these two together? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to, obviously, okay, first thing is we need a mix shader. Our mix shader is going to help us with that. So from the mix shader into there, into my surface, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in my, using this Shift D. Now remember what we did. Here's my paint node, from color into base color and roughness into my roughness. So that's driven quite nicely already. I'm going to plug that into the bottom part of the shader. I'm going to plug this top part into that part of the shader. Now, how do I determine, remember by this factor, so you'll see now it's mixed. All right, if we look at my material here, and that's because the factor over here is 50%. Remember, if we plug a mask into here, black and white mask, the black and white areas are going to determine, so 0 being black, I think full, yes, being white, that will determine where our rust will sit. Okay, now something that was pretty cool that I learned, all right, was this. If I add in a node and it's called a, input, and it's called a geometry input, okay, which we've learned in our previous tutorial. Do you remember this? Pointless. If you've seen our previous tutorial on finding edges and then applying a material to an edges. Well, if you were thinking, man, this is pointless, hence the name pointless, it's not pointless, right? Because now what it's gonna help us with is to get the rust sort of on the edges, and you know, because if you think about it, rust will sort of come from those edges there, and then yeah, I think it'll start spreading. But anyway, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to use that to drive that, right? But what I'm going to need is I'm going to need a color ramp. You know what color ramp helps us with? It helps us to take the black and white areas that drive your map closer together or more further apart. So I'm going to take this guy over here, and I'm going to put it at about maybe about over there, and I'm going to take this guy and put it about over there. Alright, I'm going to take my pointless, plug it into the factor, and then what I need to do is, because yeah, no, there's no because, just trust me on this one. I'm going to get a converter and RGB to black and white. I'm going to plug my color. Oh yes, that's right. That's why, because out of here I'm actually getting a color anyway of the scenery. So yeah, I've converted to black and white, and now I'm going to plug it into the mix shader. Now remember what the pointless does. It basically takes the angles, and you can shift how you want. So you'll see these edges here on the model, these edges, yeah, all where all the angles are, and it's going to place, that's the mapping, that's the placing of it, is this, and you use your color ramp to basically adjust how far you want it to spread off those edges. Right, so here we go, into factor, and there now you can already see how we've got our two different materials. And here you can see your sample rate out of 64. You'll see as it gets clearer. Now I can adjust this. All right, if I can take more this way, you'll see how more of the blue pops up. And if I take it more this way, then more of the rust pops up. So you kind of find the sweet spot on where you want that rust to sit. It's all up to you, to your design, on how much of the rust you want to sit on your model. you can play around, especially if you've got a machine that renders quite quickish. You can already start seeing where the placement of the rust is. Maybe get it to spread. I do want the blue paint. And also notice that, remember how in our model we plugged here, here's the, with our group nodes, how we can actually make adjustments within the nodes. Even though pressing tab, all of this is in here, I can make adjustments from outside here. Okay. I want to get a bit of blue on here. I like the spread. Want a bit of that paint. So, you know, it's up to you on how you want your model to sit. You'll see once the sample rate finishes here, and basically that is as far as we're getting today for this model. Next week we're going to continue. You can even see inside here how there's the rust, there's a bit of the shininess. If I want to adjust that shininess, I can the roughness of the paint, I can do it here. If I want to adjust the scale or any of those, you know, that roughness on this side, I can adjust it here as well. I'm just trying to check how exactly the rough fine tune this. Yeah, exactly what's here. And yeah, so that is the beginning. We've got our two materials. There are other like other things that we're going to be adding onto our material. So, you know, you want to stay, you know, keep checking out what, you know, this section for the next tutorial if you want to follow along. Hit the subscribe button to subscribe to Active TV to support what we're doing here. Go check out our playlist, because you know, it's not just the Blender tutorial. There's also guitar tutorials, there's vocal, there's music stuff. There's also some really cool other shows like Keeping Up the Relatives, a show called The Sibs. There's a whole lot of other interesting stuff. You want to go check that out in the playlist right now after you play this. So there you go, there's my rendering done also, just in case I basically press a button. So I think that's a good start. This is only a start. You got two materials. You've also learned how to group nodes. And so, like I said, in our next video, we're going to continue with this model. We're going to make this look really, really good. If you want to follow along, subscribe so you can get notified. Also, hit the like button. Also, go check out our app, guys. Active TV Online. Go check out that. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.